Welcome back to my YouTube channel Inglés con Tumbao Caribe. Today I'm pretty excited to start a new series of videos of classes with TV shows. And the first TV show we're going to analyze is The Penguin, a show I particularly loved because it's very entertaining and because it also has a lot of linguistic elements that can help you improve your English skills. So today we're going to be analyzing phrasal verbs, idiomatic expressions, and oral grammar. So sit back and let's get started with our first English class with TV shows. We are going to learn today is phrasal verbs. You have to listen to the clip 2 times and fill in the gap. Complete the missing word. This is a clip from episode 3. I think the name is Bliss. And let's see, let's listen to the clip and guess the phrasal verb.
Kid, where's your head at? You still worked up about that Joel shit? As far as I'm concerned.
One more time.
Kid, where's your head at? You still worked up about that Joel shit? As far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so Oswald says, Kid, where's your head at? And that's basically a question that means, what are you thinking about? And then he continues and says, you still worked up about that jewel. The phrasal verb here is worked up, which means tense or nervous about something. It's a phrasal verb that makes you sound very advanced, I have to say. And another example could be, I'm worked up about my exams. Look at the ed in the verb work, and it's basically because you're using it as an adjective and you don't say work it up, you have to pronounce it as a t. So you still worked up about that jewel, blah, blah, blah. And the example, I'm worked up about my exams. Let's continue with the second phrasal verb. So the second phrasal verb we'll study today is with the preposition over. You have to listen to the clip again 2 times and complete with the verb that you hear. Let's do it.
You could come with me. We could start over.
Really?
You could come with me.
Time.
We could start over.
Really?
Great. So she says you could come with me and over. Basically, she's inviting him to escape from Gotham because it's become a dangerous place. And the phrasal verb is start over. And start over means to make a new beginning. It's very common in North American English. You could say, for example, I'll move to a new country to start over, to make a new beginning, to begin again. So this is not a very complex phrasal verb, but I would say that it's a very common. So now is your turn. You have to make an example with this phrasal verb and put it in the comments. Let's continue to the third phrasal verb. Okay, so this is the third phrasal verb we'll study. Now it's a little bit more difficult because I'm not giving you the particle. You have to listen and complete the 3 words. This is a phrasal verb with 2 particles and they are complex in English. So let's listen to this conversation between the penguin when he was a kid and his mom. And then we'll check the meaning of the phrasal verb. Let's do it.
And if you don't believe me, well, you don't gotta. Because I'm gonna prove it to you. Every damn day. Just don't give up on me.
Okay, so he's talking to his mom and he says, if you don't believe me, you don't gotta. He's promising that he's gonna change her life, that he's going to give her the best. And then he says this, because I'm gonna prove it to you every day. Just don't give up on me, which basically means don't stop believing that I will be able to succeed, that I'll give you what you deserve, the best life, etc. So it's a more idiomatic way to say that concept. Stop believing that somebody will be able to change, to be better, etc. And you could also look at this example to understand it even more. This is true about me. I was bad at maths, but my teachers never gave up on me. My teachers never stopped believing in my capabilities to learn maths and succeed. So, great. This is an advanced phrasal verb, and it's very common in conversation. So, let's do one more phrasal verb before we move on to idiomatic expressions. In the fourth phrasal verb we'll study today, we have Sophia, one of the main characters from the show, and Johnny. Johnny doesn't appear on screen, but he is in the background talking to her. So she will use a phrasal verb of movement. Listen and catch it.
How you doing, Johnny? You ready to head back to the house?
One
How
more
you
time.
doing, Johnny? You ready to head back to the house?
Great. So it's a very interesting phrasal verb because it's with head, but it doesn't refer to the part of the body. It refers to the action of going. So she says, "How you doing, Johnny? You ready to head back to the house? Are you ready to go back to the house?" So head back means return, and it usually means return home. You have this example, I gotta head back to my place. See you later. And head as a verb usually means go. I can ask you, for example, where are you headed? And it means where are you going? So right now, I wanted to make an example with head back in the comments. And now we're going to study idiomatic expressions. Remember, an idiomatic expression is a phrase that doesn't have a literal meaning. If I want to infer the meaning of an idiom or an idiomatic expression, I cannot do that by looking at the individual words. I have to see the whole phrase and study the context. What is it describing? So in this case, we're going to look at idiomatic expressions from the show. And what I want you to do is to listen and choose the right word, A, B, or C. You will see that this is also a grammar exercise that helps you a lot. So let's listen to the clip 2 times, choose the right letter, and then we will discuss the meaning and the grammar behind this expression. Let's do it.
Intentions are high, and I wish we was gathered under different circumstances. But our family has weathered storms before.
one more time.
Intentions are high, and I wish we was gathered under different circumstances. But our family has weathered storms.
Correct. So this is Uncle Luca Falcone, and he is talking to his family. This is a very powerful scene from the show, in my opinion. And he says, but our family has weathered storms. He uses letter C. He's talking about all the problems the problems that his family has had. And he says this, he uses this expression, and weather storms means to survive a difficult situation or difficult situations without suffering too much damage. So the word storms is a symbol, is a metaphor for problems or difficult situations, and weather could mean like deal with. So you see, if you translate it literally, it doesn't have too much sense. Now, why did I say that this was a very good grammar exercise? Because you can even guess the word, the missing word, without listening. Because if you look at the auxiliary has, you might infer that you need the past participle afterwards, and A and B don't have past participle. A could be the noun or the verb in the base form, weather, and B, which is weather, homophone, it's pronounced in the same way, is used in different constructions. So you say, for example, whether you like it or not. You see, you don't use it as a verb. And then you have letter C, which is the expression you need, weathered storms. Um, if you had a lot of problems last year, but you dealt with them successfully, you could say, I weather the storms or I weather the storm in 2024. That means you dealt with the problems successfully and you didn't suffer too much damage. Now let's move on to the second idiomatic expression from the show. And the second expression we're going to analyze to learn today is an interesting one to understand the penguin's character because I think this describes what he does throughout the show. We have Sophia talking to Oswald, to the penguin, and she's basically trying to find um, information about her brother. So listen 2 times and then choose the right word. We will discuss the meaning and how you can use this expression in conversation later. Let's do it.
You are so good at talking your way out of things. You are so good at talking your way out of things.
So she says, you're so good at talking your way out of things. Why does she say this to him? What is the meaning of talk your way out of things? If you talk your way out of things, you try to escape from a bad or embarrassing situation by giving explanation, excuses, by trying to persuade the other person to excuse you. So basically, what he does is to avoid the negative consequences of his actions, and he does that by talking. So it's a very interesting chunk, and like I said, it describes the personality of Oswald. How can you use this in conversation? Think about a person who gives a lot of excuses, who he's always late, who never does things on time, and they always try to explain or excuse their behavior. So that person, you could describe that person by saying he or she talks his or her way out of things. And the opposite, because this expression has an opposite expression, is talk your way into things or into something. I could, for example, say he talked his way into the job, and that means that he persuaded maybe the job recruiter to hire him by giving reasons for that action. So it's a very interesting combination of two idiomatic expressions, two opposites that you can use in conversation to describe people who like to manipulate or use their verbal skills to persuade others into doing something or not doing something. The third expression is with the verb call, and it doesn't refer to making phone call. So you have to decide if it's calling the shops, calling the cops, or the shots. To give you a little bit of context, so you have here Oswald, the penguin, talking to Sophia, and he's basically telling her that she should be the boss. She should be the person making decisions. So, which word sounds better to complete this expression before listening? Do you think it's calling the shops, calling the cops, or calling the shots? Let's listen and check.
You need,
Why would you do that?
because there should be you in there calling the shots. Right? You should be the new boss. Now come on. Whatever you need,
Why would you do that?
because there should be you in there calling the shots. Right? You should be the
There you go. So he says you should be, or it should be you calling the shots. And it doesn't literally mean call the pew pew. It refers to making decisions. So if you call the shots, you are the person who is in control of a situation. So she's or he's basically telling her it should be you making the important decisions. You should be in control of the families. There is a similar expression with the verb call, and it has the same meaning, and it's to call the tune. And it comes from the proverb, the one who pays the piper calls the tune, and it's basically the one who is in control makes the decisions. The last idiomatic expression we will study from the show is one that I think can be confusing for English learners because they typically see this phrase in a literal way. And today we're going to study a figurative use. So listen to the clip once and see if the verb she uses is I can see, I can look, or I can tell.
You don't believe me.
I didn't say that.
I can tell.
So she says, you don't believe me. And then the shrink, the doctor says, I didn't say that. And she answers, I can tell. And she's not talking about telling information, saying something. She refers to noticing or understanding something. You use the expression I can tell when you indicate that you can see, notice, perceive, understand something. And there is another expression that's very common with tell, which is as far as I can tell. So, according to my understanding, this is what I can say about whatever I'm talking about. So, I can tell. It's very similar to I can't help, which is not helping as in giving support to somebody. It's just, you can avoid something from happening or you can stop doing something. So, very useful expression and not very common in English classes, but very common in conversation, as you can see in this clip. Okay, let's begin with the grammatical part of this English lesson. We're going to look at spoken grammar. And maybe you have the question, what is the difference between spoken grammar and written grammar? So it's the same. Speaking is different from writing, and there are some grammatical elements that are only particularly found in conversation. We're going to analyze three of them today. So the first thing I wanted to do is to listen to this clip and analyze how ain't is used by Oswald, by the penguin. So let's see.
Sweetheart, there's all kinds of things I could say, but what matters is ain't nothing to be afraid of.
So he says, there's all kinds of things I can say. What matters is ain't nothing to be afraid of. And what is the meaning of ain't there? So ain't as a contraction is considered wrong, incorrect, but I prefer to call it non-standard. Non-standard means you shouldn't use it in conversation, but people will use it with friends and in informal situations. So there are two important elements here. The first one is the use of ain't, which means I'm not, are not, is not, have not, has not, there isn't, there aren't. But in this particular case, he's combining it with nothing. So it's a double negation, which is also considered non-standard. So what he meant here was there's all kinds of things I can say. What matters is there isn't anything to be afraid of, or there is nothing to be afraid of. What he's doing basically is eliminating there and using ain't as a contraction alone. Let's analyze this ain't in other examples. So listen and try to see if it's I'm not, if it's is not, are not, there isn't, have not, or has not. Let's see. Okay, so this is the second example where Oswald uses ain't. I want you to listen and look at the contraction. Does it refer to am not, are not, is not, have not, or has not? Let's see.
Talk about my brother. He ain't got no right, you understand?
So he says, you don't talk about my brother. You ain't got no right. You understand? So that ain't is referring to haven't. You haven't got no right. You understand? So in that case, he should say you haven't got any right. He's using a double negation like in the previous example. He could also say you haven't got any right, or you have no right, or you don't have any right, etc. So as you can see, ain't is pretty flexible. It can mean multiple negative contractions, and you have to be careful with the surrounding words. Let's look at another example. And the last clip to keep learning about ain't is in this short conversation between Victor and Oswald the penguin. Listen, look at ain't, and tell me if it's I'm not, are not, is not, have not, or has not.
I don't think you ever got to eat in a lot of nice restaurants.
That ain't right.
Okay, so Victor is talking about his dad. Maybe his dad didn't have a lot of opportunities. He was humble. He didn't have so much money. So he says, I don't think he ever got to eat in nice restaurants. And then Oswald responds, that ain't right. And that ain't is just isn't. That isn't right. Like I said, ain't is very informal, considered non-standard. So if you want to use it, you have to be careful. Try to use it maybe in informal texts or in informal conversations with friends, or if you can avoid it altogether, don't use it in conversation. So we finished with ain't. Let's move on to the second item, which is the contraction of did in questions, a very interesting aspect. And the second grammatical aspect we're going to analyze, learn about, is the contraction of did. And it might sound crazy, but did is usually contracted in conversation, especially in questions. So listen to this clip from the show and write the missing question word. Is it where, what, who, why? Listen and write it down.
Sorry. How'd it go?
So she says very, very fast, how'd it go? How'd it go? Which is a contraction of how did it go? And like I said, it's very common in conversation, but it's not commonly taught. What are other examples of contractions with, did in questions? You have where'd, what, and it's like joining the did to the what in pronunciation, and who'd also with why, etc. So let's look at another clip and see how did is contracted with a question word, joined to the question word. This is another example of the contraction with how, and now Sophia will use a different verb. She will say it 2 times, so listen and complete it.
Working alone. How'd they know about our route? How'd they know about the FEMA truck? They had someone on the inside.
So it's very fast. She says, how they know about. And it's very important to notice the difference between how they know without the contraction, which would be grammatically non-standard, but also possible in conversation, and how they know. There is like a little pause between how and they, and it's basically the contraction of did, that apostrophe did, the sound that you can see there. And if you watch the full show, you will see examples with what and also with where. So we are done with the second grammatical item. Let's see one more, and this will be the last item for this video. And the last element we are going to study today is tag questions. It's a very frequent grammatical aspect in conversation, and it's used throughout the whole TV show. I'm going to show you 2 examples, and I'll teach you how you can use tag questions in your own speaking. So let's listen to Oswald and his girlfriend, and she's going to say something here, and you have to listen and complete the missing word.
You killed Alberto Falcone. That's why I need my alibi, isn't it?
So which word did she use in that space? That's why you needed my alibi. Blah, 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 it. So she says, isn't it? And it's basically a question to confirm something, to confirm some information that she believes is true. How do tag questions work when the verb is different from be, not is, are, etc. So in the first example, you can see it says, you work here, don't you? Why do we use don't? Because the statement is in present simple, positive, and the auxiliary for present simple is do. So remember the rule. If the statement is positive, we transform or we make the question in negative. In this case, imagine the sentence is negative. You don't work here, do you? So instead of don't, we need the auxiliary do. And then you see the second example is with did. It's easier to see because didn't is already in the statement. So all you got to do is put it in positive. If that sentence was positive, you sent the email, didn't you? We would still need did, but it would be in the negative form. And I would say that the most common verbs in question tags or tag questions are is, do, and did. But you could have can, any auxiliary, will, have, etc. Okay, listen to the second clip and complete the missing word. Which auxiliary goes in the gap?
I want to say a few words. You don't mind. Do you, Uncle Luca? I did want to say a few words.
So, like I said before, even without listening, you can infer that the missing auxiliary is do because you already internalized the rule. So you don't mind, then the tag question goes with do. And this is the importance of learning chunks and phrases. because it really helps you to anticipate things, and then you will understand without even listening. So your mind is already prepared for the auxiliary or the word that you're going to get. That's why I like learning English in this way, because it prepares you. So you get to understand things that are predictable and not necessarily because you heard or didn't hear that word. Great. I think this is it from the class. I think we covered a lot of things. We studied phrasal verbs. We did 4 phrasal verbs. We did idiomatic expressions. And we also learned grammar from this TV show, The Penguin. I hope you really like this video. Please subscribe, leave your comments, tell me which TV show you would like me to teach next, and I will prepare a class on that. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.